Now we'll see how to set up the project for a ZK app with a UI, and we'll also go through the entire directory structure for it. For setting up a project with a UI, we'll again use the command zk project name, but this time we'll be using different options within that command. I'll show you how to get it done. So we'll create a test folder called test UI, and I'll walk you through the steps of setting up the project for a UI. We'll choose the option next. If you want to set it up for GitHub pages, then you can select yes. We'll select yes here. TypeScript, yes. ESLint, yes. Tailwind, yes. So our project is set up now. This is the directory that we have set up for our UI based ZK app. This will contain a contracts folder where we'll store our smart contracts, and a UI folder where all the components related to the UI will go. Okay, so now I'll walk you through how the project directory for this example would look like. In this example, we'll add a UI to the Square example we did earlier. So we'll be taking the smart contracts from that example, and we'll add a UI based on Next.js framework. We'll add some helper files which will help us in interfacing with the smart contract layer. So I have the directory already set up. You can also look at it in the GitHub link I have given. The Square UI directory will have one folder called contracts. This will store all of our contracts. It's similar to the directories we have set up earlier. In the src folder, we have an index file, a main file, a Square test file, and a Square smart contract file. Next, we have the UI folder. In the UI folder, our core code is present in the src folder. In this, we have this pages directory where we have three main files. One is index page, second is ZK app worker, and the third is ZK app worker client. The ZK app worker file acts as a middleware between the smart contract and the UI. It defines all of the functions that will be calling on a smart contract. The ZK app worker client file acts as a wrapper on top of the ZK app worker file and helps us in connecting it with our main UI components. The index page is where our UI components would reside. This example is a modified version of the fourth tutorial in the docs where you set up a ZK app with a UI. I have modified it to work with our Square example. Okay, so you'll start by modifying the contract specific functions. For example, I had this function where we pass in a value which is a Square value, a number value, to the update function, and it checks whether the value is a square of the num value or not and updates it accordingly. So you can modify this create update transaction according to that. We don't need to edit anything else. The rest of the things are going to stay the same. There are a lot of things in this file, so you can go through the file and try to see if you can understand all of it. The ZK app worker client file is where we'll configure it to act as an interface between our ZK app worker and our UI components. So here also we'll modify the functions that we need. So for example, we'll update the function which is the create update transaction, and we'll update it so that we can pass in a value, a number that is supposed to be the square of number stored in a ZK app contract. Again, we'll leave the rest of the things as they are. You can go through the file to learn about it in more detail. Next, we'll cover our index page. I'll walk you through the important bits of this code. Here in this section, you'll specify the amount of transaction fee you are willing to set, and you'll specify the ZK app address of your deployed smart contract. We'll cover more on this aspect in our demo. Next, you would want to find out the sections where UI components are creating or sending transactions, and you would want to take a look at what methods they are calling under the hood and modify them appropriately. For example, we are sending a number from our input field here, so we'll modify this code accordingly so that it takes in the value of an input field with an ID num and it sends it over to the smart contract. This is the main UI part of a code where we are fetching the current state of our ZK app, and we have a button to get the latest state. So we refresh the current state and get whatever the latest value of num is on our ZK app. Then we have an input field where we can add a number and it would be passed over to our smart contract, and we have a button which we can use to send a transaction. It's using onSend transaction function, which we covered just a few seconds ago. Again, you can check all of these files in the GitHub repo link I have provided. Use the link to go through the files in detail and try to see how everything is coming together.